you're referring to as utilitarianism is a philosophical concept, you know, but I'm not talking about it literally. I'm actually taking the general sort of meaning of it and actually putting it on something else. So I'm not just directly writing about it, I'm applying it to me as a person, you know. It has parallels with basically what utilitarianism is. It's the idea that performing a good action has a good consequence. That's a basic explanation because it gets quite complex, you know. So what I wanted to do is take that and like make a parallel that me as a person, at least the way I try to live my life, and I know there's many other people that do this as well, is, you know, whatever things I do in my life, whether it's as simple as going to a shop and buying something, you know, I always think about that action. Will it have a negative consequence on, you know, say for example, you buy a pair of jeans, you know, I want to know where they've come from, to be honest. I want to know that they haven't been made by little kids in a fucking sweatshop, you know, in wherever, you know, with no protection or labour rules. And so you get the sort of thing I'm talking about. So many things in life, you know, you could do that have a negative consequence perhaps. And I try and avoid to do that, you know. So I'm making that parallel, and but also saying that in as much as I do that, you know, you have periods of self-doubt where you wouldn't think to yourself, well, all this effort, you know, and is it making a difference? Because that's the point, you know, you want to try and make a difference, you know, whereas other people just perhaps don't care, you know, they'll just do whatever. And you think to yourself, what difference am I making? You know, is there all this effort, what difference? But of course, you should do it, because if you don't, or a number of people don't, then that degree of protest is taken away, you know, and there's less opposition to the things that you're actually being critical of, you know what I mean? So you should always persevere with that stuff. So that's the point I'm trying to make. It's not directly just writing about a philosophy, it's about drawing a parallel, you know. And the music just accompanies it, you know. The music goes along with it and is strong, hopefully, in its own right, you know.
The track names are short and trenchant, such a song as The Wolf I Feed. Let us discover a rather unusual singing. So what explain?
Well, that's actually purely by accident, that track. People that I've talked to, certainly today, have asked whether it's a guest vocalist. It's not, it's actually Mitch, the guitarist. He's singing. What happened with that was, Mitch and Shane sometimes write 1-2 sets of lyrics on an album, and I always get them to lay down a guide vocal, so I know roughly what I'm meant to be doing when I go to do the real vocals, you know. But when Mitch laid down the guide vocal for that track, I was like, shit, that sounds really good, you know. I don't need to sing it, I'll just fill in the gaps in between and you do the main vocal. So that's how that song happened, it's Mitch, you know. So.
Utilitarian has a particularly sophisticated sounding, both rich and strongly brutal. Could you say that Russell's work has been great so far?
Yeah, I mean, that goes without saying, you know. I mean, Russ is he's a friend, goes back a long time, which helped him always to have an understanding of the band. And I think, you know, the thing with Napalm is it'll be very difficult for us to work with producers other than Russ, to be totally honest with you, because there are some good producers out there, but not necessarily Napalm producers. I mean, I don't wish to sound arrogant, but I expect a certain sound of Napalm. You know, if anybody comes into produce, I don't want to hear something that's ultra produced or with all the edges, you know, smoothed off, so it's not, you know, rough sounding anymore. It has to have a real nasty, horrible sound for me, you know, and hopefully we've achieved that. But see, a lot of producers kind of don't understand that, you know. I think if we could use anybody else, I think that there are other people, but it'd be somebody like Steve Albini, you know, who was like Rape Man and all that stuff, Shellac, you know, and but also or somebody like the guy from Converge, you know, he's always doing albums. His production, I think, is really good. But there's not many that we could use that I wouldn't be worried about thinking, is this album gonna be too clean sounding, you know? I don't want that from a Napalm album, you know.
Release is always kind of an event. So apart from the writing and the recording of the new album, what else have been doing the band or its beings?
It's actually quite funny to me that you say that it's like an event. You know, that kind of makes it sound, I don't know, I don't know, in a funny way, you know, not in a negative way, in a funny way, you know, but it's nice that you should say that, you know, but we've been doing the album and that's it really. I mean, yeah, we've been doing gigs here and there, you know, we've been to Russia recently and Canada was two of the last big things that we did, and a UK tour towards the end of the year. But yeah, I mean, the album really has been always at the forethought, if you like, you know.
Could you please go further about the French named song?
Aston. I thought of that a couple of times. No, I like to, you know, I'm always like to write creatively, you know, I like to try and avoid the obvious, and I know it's difficult sometimes with trying to avoid like cliche and stuff, but I try to, I mean, I speak 3 languages, you know, English, Spanish, German. Don't speak French, unfortunately, but obviously there are some French, some words of French origin that cross over into the English language. I mean, there's cliché is a French word. There's numerous things, you know, numerous sayings I can come up with, but I can't say nom de guerre is one of them, you know. And I know it means alias, you know, like another. It can mean like a second name or another name, you know, that isn't the real name, you know. So I wanted to use that as to say, the point of that song was to say, you know, sometimes you meet people in life who elevate themselves, you know, it's like they're something that they're not, you know, they're trying to be something that they're not. And that's, in one respect, that's okay, you know, if you're trying to experience different things a bit, that's fine, you know, but some people do it to kind of suggest, to try and make themselves better, like, than other people, you know, and that can be quite fucking arrogant, you know, it can be quite destructive in many ways. And so, you know, the point of nom de guerre is that it's an alias, it's like the person that you're not, you know what I mean? It is an alias to you as who you actually are, you know. So that was the point behind that. And so I was just kind of, you know, the French phrase came, I thought, that sounds really good, you know, I used that. And hopefully it sounds correct, you know, in the context, you know.
Actually, you often use foreign languages, or especially Latin, on some tracks name, like The Evolution, Nocium.
Yeah.
That's Melts.
Yeah, that's German, yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, just because, those, although they have origins in different languages, they're used in English. So yes, they are they are sort of foreign languages technically, but they're still used in. They have origin. They cross over into the English language, so it's easy for me to use them. You know, and it feels a little bit more creative to me. You know, I find sometimes in music that when bands write lyrics, and this is, you know, just an observation, sometimes they resort to very obvious cliches, you know. You look at a song title and you go, I've heard that one 1,000 times, or a variation of it, you know. So I always like to try and be a bit creative. Of course, people can turn around and say, make the point to me that, well, you know, using all this like Latin or German, it's fucking pretentious, you know, but okay, you know, I'll take that, fine, you know, but whatever works, you know, what works for me doesn't work for somebody else. So I can only do what I feel is the right thing, you know, as with anything in life, I suppose, you know.
So almost 25 years have been going on between Scum and Utilitarian, or even Harmony Corruption, on which you joined the band. Would you ever have guessed going so far with such a...
Absolutely not, of course. I mean, you know, it's quite obvious, but, you know, when I joined, you know, I thought, I'll get a good 2 or 3 years out of this. It'll be a great experience. You know, I was, not long after I joined, we were going to play CBGB's in New York, you know, the old classic, you know, legendary club, you know, which is gone now, you know, but so I, you know, we'd given that, I thought, yeah, good 2 or 3 years would be brilliant, you know, have a brilliant time. 20-something years later, I'm still here, you know. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's been some very challenging things along the way, of course, where you just think to yourself, fuck, you know, is it worth it anymore, you know, am I still into it, blah, 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 you know, you ask yourself, you always think to yourself. But, you know, clearly it has been, we've worked our way through it, we're here at this point now, and it's going well. But, you know, the reality is, as with anything in life, depending on circumstances and events, things could finish tomorrow. As with anything in life, you know, nothing is ever a cert, you know, everything has an end point, you know, so things are good now, we've got a new album coming out, I mean, who knows, you know.
Do you still write for music?
Don't do it.
Why?
I stopped doing it. You know what, I can't say I never enjoyed it, but I literally almost woke up one day and I actually felt really bad about having to write sometimes bad stuff about other bands, or very critical stuff of other bands, you know. I just didn't want to do it anymore. It didn't feel right to me, you know, because the thing is in me, I can never say what I'm not thinking, you know. So if I heard a band and it was really bad, even if I knew the band, I'd just say what I thought, you know. And it wasn't that I didn't care about getting into trouble, but I think that as a musician myself, you know, I don't have the musical answers to everything. And for me to sort of use, perhaps in a way, use that as a basis of judgment on other bands, I just got to thinking I shouldn't continue with that, you know. I didn't want to continue with it anymore, so I just stopped doing it, you know. And I won't do it again. I maybe write again, but it won't be musical stuff. I mean, I've thought about writing books and stuff, you know, but I don't know, we'll see.
Apart from Paris, where you will play in the beginning of March, you will also play gigs in small French cities such as Blois, Castres, Rambouillet or Saint-Brieuc. Is the reason the fact that you never played there?
Yeah, I mean, if you know anything about Napalm, it's funny enough, I was surprised how many people in France think that we only play Paris, perhaps like Lille or Toulouse or something. Man, we go the smallest places, you know, and if it's just that if it's not part of a main tour where you've got 2 or 3 support bands, people, if they don't live in those particular towns, they tend not to find out about it. But we come to France a lot. We'll do 4 or 5 shows and then go home again. And like we do some really quite small towns, you know. It's just that people don't find out about it. And we'll be playing those places, maybe we haven't played them before, I'm not sure. You know, we may have done actually. But the main point is quite simple. Promoter's contacted us, thinks that he can do a good gig there, so we'll do it. That's it. Simple, you know.
Are there the summer festivals projects for the band?
Yeah, there are. I couldn't tell you what they are right now. And the only one I can remember off the top of my head is Summer Breeze, Wacken as well. I think we're doing Wacken this year. Summer Breeze, Wacken, Hellfest. And there's lots of smaller festivals, like independent, you know, sort of festivals, which is good, you know. It's important we have independent things, you know. And yeah, it'll be a productive summer, I think, you know.